Good afternoon, everyone. Please, let's give like 5 more minutes for other people to join. We should start exactly, let's start like 10 minutes past 3. Thank you. Welcome everybody to today's demo section. So welcome. So today is the demo section for our January. Oh, can you guys hear me? Please put a comment in the chat if you can hear me. Just put hello in the chat comment so that I know that you guys can hear me. Oh, can you guys hear me? Please put a comment in the comment box if you can hear me. Okay, thank you. All right. I will switch to the presentation mode now so that you guys can see my PowerPoint presentation. My presentation. All right. So today is the demo section of our next batch of AWS Cloud Security Architect and Cloud Solution Cloud Cybersecurity Engineer. My name is Ayodipe Adeyemi. I'm your host. So this is the agenda for today. First, I'm going to introduce myself, the trainer. Then I will introduce the cloud and cloud compute, especially for those people that are hearing about cloud computing for the first time. Then we will look at the jobs in the cloud and the average salaries of jobs in the cloud. Also, we are going to look at the roles of a cloud solution architect and cloud cybersecurity or cloud engineer. Then we're going to learn about the major cloud providers. Then after that, we look at the AWS Core Services. Then look at the major or why we pick AWS among all of the cloud providers. Then I'm going to introduce you to TheCornelis Inc, which is a training platform that is organizing the training. Then we're going to look at our January 2024 cloud training programs. Then we're going to hear from the success story from our previous students. Then after that, we go to questions and answer section. Then finally, we look at them. We have a closing remark. So about me, as I said earlier, my name is Ayodipe Adeyemi, but I go by AY or people call me Yemi. Then I'm the founder of the Cornelis Inc. I'm a trainer and a mentee, and I'm also a mentor. I do like to teach. I also like to do self-development. Then I like to watch movie when I'm free. About my past jobs, I was a software implementation partner. I can say that is when my IT career begins. Then after that, I was a software developer, and currently I'm a cloud solution architect and a security engineer. I know somebody might be wondering, why are you hosting two positions at the same time? Well, most companies nowadays, they employ you for one thing and they use this for multiple things. So in the company that I work for currently, I'm the main AWS security expert that they have there, and I manage the whole entire AWS environment, starting from the architectural diagram to the deployment and the security of the application. And this is not a startup company; it's among the Fortune 100 companies, as normally people say, Fortune 100. So it's a very large company, but I do manage almost everything. About certification, I'm not really a fan of certification because I believe certification alone cannot get you the jobs. And for the fact that you have all the certification doesn't mean that you know the jobs. So, but I do have some of the certifications, AWS certifications. I have the AWS Cloud Practitioner. I also have the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. Then the major certification I really love that I do have is the Computer Security Plus. If you want to work in the government organization or government enterprise, you really need the Computer Security Plus. Is what I say is the like foundation to all the security engineering jobs. And also, I have some vendor-based certifications. So, what is cloud? Do we mean this cloud? No, not this cloud. When we talk about cloud, we refer to cloud in the context of computing and technology, which refer to cloud computing. When we talk about cloud in IT, we refer to that as cloud computing. Cloud computing is the delivery of information technology services over the internet. When somebody say cloud in IT, in information technology, or in relation or in the context of compute and technology, they means cloud computing, which refer to develop, delivery of information technology services over the internet. Delivery of information technology over the internet. Like as you can see from this diagram here, a lot of us have different gadgets. You have mobile phone, you have laptop, you have printers, you have desktop at home. Especially, let's take one of them. Let's say you have an Apple phone. Your Apple phone, when you have an Apple phone, you deploy, you take pictures with the Apple phone, you write messages, you store something on your Apple phone. And when the Apple phone is almost getting full, then you try to push some of the files or the pictures that you have on your Apple phone, you push them into the high cloud. What you are doing is that you are pushing those pictures, or you are saving those pictures in another person's server, in another person's storage. What you are doing is that you are pushing the cloud or the data or the content to another person's storage, which means you are using that person's storage over the internet. That is cloud computing there. So if you still not understand what a cloud computing is, let me use an analogy as an example. Look at this guy. This is Sam. Sam do like to browse internet. Majority of the time when Sam browse the internet, then one day Sam discovered that, hey, he has an idea. The idea is to start teaching people online. So Sam starts teaching people online. As Sam starts teaching people online, his content, or people start liking his mode of teaching, so he has more students. So the problem is now that Sam has to record the video and send it to his students every time. That is not scalable enough. So Sam decided to start putting all those videos on the internet so that people can just go to the internet and watch the video. So for Sam to do this, Sam needs an internet or a web browser. He needs a website. So after somebody developed website for Sam, so Sam need to host the website. So Sam bought a server. So Sam hosting the website on this server. This server is not the cheapest and it's not the most expensive. This is just like an average server. You will see server of 70,000 plus and above, and you see server of 3,000 and below, or in that range. So now that Sam has server that is managing, that is using to distribute his content. So the problem now here is that Sam has to manage both the server and his own laptop. So on the server, Sam has to manage the storage, he has to manage the compute, he has to manage the memory, he also has to do the connectivity with the networking with other servers or database. So Sam has to do all of this. That is not the problem. The problem now is that out of this, Sam is only using 5% of the capacity of that server, meaning that he has 95% unused, which is not really worth it, because he bought a server, he's only using 5% of it, and the remaining 95% is not being used. So how can we solve this problem? Then another person called Sherry is doing exactly what Sam is doing, but Sherry has a 75% capacity in use and has 25% left. So Sam and Sherry can come together instead of both of them buying different server, both of them can share the same server. So Sherry owns the server, but Sam can now use the server and only pay for the 5% that he needs. So instead of buying a whole server and only using 5% of the server, he can just use the same server with Sherry if they both agree. So he can now pay only for 5% capacity utilization instead of paying for 100% and just using 5. So now Sherry, instead of having 25% capacity on use, you only have 20% and he's still making extra money from this 5% that Sam is using. So this is like cloud computing. Sam is now using IT services over the internet, is using Sherry's Sherry's server over the internet without having his own separate server. Is using Sherry's own. So this is an example or an analogy of cloud computing when customer or clients use IT services, information technology services over the internet. Instead of them buying their own physical home, they just use they use another person's home and they only pay for what they use. So let's take this now to organization. Let's take this to organization. Let's take Sam and Sherry out of the equation. So an organization, which is an example of an AWS client, we pay for AWS services. We pay AWS so that they can use AWS IT resources. So when this client is using AWS IT resources, he has to use it over the internet and he only pay for what they use. If they use 5%, they only pay for that 5% and they are not paying more than that. So instead of this client now to have his own IT to have his own server, to have his own physical database or his physical server, he can just pay AWS and use only 5% of the compute services. And he only has to pay for that 5%. And if he's not using it, he's not paying for it. So with this analogy that we seen earlier, we can now, in a simple term, define cloud compute as for individual and business to accept or to access compute services. So cloud compute is allowing an individual and a business or businesses to access compute services such as data storage, compute power, database over the internet. So the customer or the clients don't have to pay for all these services. They can use those services over the internet. And guess what? They only pay for what they use. If they are not using it, they are not paying for it. But unlike if your customer has to buy their own server, then they have the server to manage. Even if they are not using it, they still have to pay for it. They still have to secure it. They still have to manage it. But when we move to cloud compute, we don't have to pay for what we don't use. So now let's look at jobs in the cloud. The jobs in the cloud, there are many jobs in the cloud. There is a lot of jobs in the cloud, especially with AWS. So if you go to any of these job websites now, you will see different jobs in the cloud. So example of job that you can have if you know the cloud compute is that you can be a computer system analyst with a salary average salary of $85,000. You can be a cloud administrator. We can be a cloud architect, cloud developer, cloud engineer, cloud consultant, or cloud security architect. And all of this salary, they are an average. You will see some people, they will earn more than that. Some will not earn up to that. But a cloud job should give you at least $100,000. Any cloud job that is below that, then that is extremely on the low side. Now let's look at other cloud jobs. You will see a cloud operational and DevOps engineer, cloud principal cloud architect, principal cloud engineer, chief cloud architect. All these are huge amounts of money. And yes, these are not the highest salary that somebody can earn. There are some people that earn more than this. If you do not believe this, if you go to, there's an article on Coursera, I will post the link later, that majority of these services, you see somebody that earn more than this. So these are the salaries on the, jobs in the cloud, and their average salaries. So out of all of these jobs, we pick two of them, the AWS Cloud Solution Architect and AWS Cloud Security Engineer, which is the main focus of our training. So now, what is AWS Cloud Solution Architect? AWS Solution Architect is a profession that involves in a design, implement, and maintain the infrastructure and system that power an organization, application, and services on the AWS platform. So when we talk about the Cloud Solution Architect, this is an individual that looks at a current applications architecture and map that to the cloud architecture. Let's take, for instance, let's say your company have a traditional 3-tier architecture on-prem. This is a 3-tier architecture on-prem. The responsibility, if you are to move these applications to the cloud, it is the responsibility of a cloud architect to look at the current infrastructure that you have on-prem and map that to the services that are available on the cloud, especially on AWS. So how would a solution architect map this 3-tier architecture to AWS services? You can see now we have the solution architect has mapped the, if you go back a little bit, you will see the physical web server. He mapped the physical web server to AWS EC2 web server. Then the application server, he mapped it to application on EC2 application server. Then the physical SQL database, he mapped that to Amazon RDS with MySQL engine. So this is an example of the role of a cloud architect. It looks at the current architecture that you have, or the problem or the challenges that a company is having in regard or in relation to the current infrastructure. Then it helps them to map that to the cloud. Like, okay, if you are migrating all these services to the cloud, these are the services that are available for this particular kind of architecture on the cloud. So let's look at the roles of a cloud solution architect. A cloud solution architect designs the cloud environment for a company. It monitors and troubleshoots and optimizes the cloud environment. It collaborates with other technology team members to complete projects. And it creating cloud-based applications that are efficient and secure, convert the technical requirements of a project into a suitable architecture. And some other things that a cloud solution architect do. This is not a full list of what a cloud solution architect do. And if you remember earlier, I said I'm going to refer you to a Coursera article that talks about the salary and the roles of a solution architect. If you go to this Coursera article, you will see the salaries of a cloud architect and the roles of a solution architect as well. So what about an engineer, a cloud security engineer? A cloud security engineer, it collaborates with the solution architects to design, implement, and maintain the security of the organization cloud-based infrastructure and applications. And this includes the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the data and the system, as well as compliance with the relevant laws and regulations. So a security engineering person will look at the architectural diagram or the resources or the environment, I mean the cloud environment, and it monitors or implements securities in all the in different layers of the environment. For instance, a security engineering person or security architect will look at how are people accessing this application. Are they accessing it in a secure way? Where are the data stores in this application? It looks at the data flows in an application or in a cloud environment and decide or determine if there is security at every layers of the data flow. So, and all those data that are stored, that are in transit, are they encrypted? How about the data that are coming from the external or from outsider? That is this data in transit. Are they also encrypted while they are in transit? So the solution, I mean, cloud security engineer are responsible to ensure that all there is security at every layers of the application. The application is accessed, or the cloud environment is accessed securely, and the cloud environment is secure in every layers. So these are the roles of a cloud security engineer. This is non-exclusive roles. These are just some of their roles. They implement cloud architectural security in an enterprise. They configure and manage identity and access for an enterprise. They keep up with the new security risk, vulnerabilities, and controls. They analyze log. They also respond to incidents that might occur or that occurs. And there are other things that they do, which is not a full list. So there are multiple cloud providers out there. So the major three cloud providers that the three major cloud providers are the AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, the Azure, Microsoft Azure, and then the Google Cloud Platform, which we refer to as GCP. And apart from that, there are also other ones like Alibaba Cloud, the IBM Cloud, Salesforce, Oracle, and Tencent Cloud. So there are a lot of them, hundreds of them. But these three are the major cloud providers. So what are the core AWS services? The core AWS services that you want to have knowledge about before you start looking for jobs in the cloud, is AWS Amazon EC2. You have to get a very good knowledge of Amazon S3. The Amazon EC2 is for create and run a virtual server. Like if you have a physical server on-prem, then on AWS, you can map that. So you can migrate your resources on a physical server on-prem to an Amazon EC2 services, which is a VM or a server, a virtual server on the cloud. You have an Amazon S3, Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon RDS, Amazon AWS Lambda, and AWS VPC. AWS VPC is the networking aspect of the AWS cloud. So these are the main core services that virtually all the companies that use AWS uses one or other parts of these services. So why should I learn AWS? Well, there are several reasons why learning AWS cloud can be beneficial. One, it is highly demand. It's high in demand. It is lucrative career opportunities. If you are earning anything above 100,000, that's a lot of money, right? It has a wide range of jobs opportunities. If you learn AWS cloud, you can as well switch to other cloud, because your knowledge on AWS cloud is sufficient to start working with other clouds too. You just need to learn their terminologies and the name they call their service, because the concepts are all the same. Then it is globally recognized. In the industry, everybody know AWS. In the industry, very few people, when you talk to them, they will not know. I even doubt if people that are on the cloud will not know AWS, because it holds almost half of the share market. Then it is versatile across industry or domain, meaning that whichever domain that you are currently working in, or you wish to work in, they use AWS there. If you are in health sector, you can use AWS Cloud in health sector. If you are in finance, you can use AWS in finance. If you are in education, they use AWS in education. So there is no domain that your skills will not be relevant. Then access to AWS community and resources. So if you join AWS, or you want to learn anything on AWS, there is a lot of tools out there that you can use to learn AWS. If you have challenges, or maybe you are deploying something, you have issue with it, there are a lot of resources and people that you can talk to, AWS communities, that you can use to resolve whichever issues that you have with AWS Cloud. So these are the benefits of AWS Cloud that's available. So TheCornelis Inc., which is the cloud IT training platform, at TheCornelis Inc., we offer a range of hands-on cloud and technical courses covering various aspects of the cloud, such as the cloud compose, cloud engineer, cloud solution architect, and cloud cybersecurity engineer. At TheCornelis Inc., we focus our training on real-world practical experience. It's what we do, or what companies actually do on the job. That is what we use for training. That is what we train people on. We don't train people just to have the certification, because we believe certification will not get you the job. We actually teach you what you need to get the job and to be able to succeed on the job. So other courses that we offer include the Terraform IAC, which is Terraform Infrastructure as Code. We also offer Python programming language, containerization and orchestration, CI/CD automation, cloud migration, and Linux operating system. So introducing our January 2024 AWS Cloud Solution Architect and Cloud Cybersecurity Training. This upcoming section is designed to dive into the realms of cloud engineering, cloud solution architect, and cloud security. Our January 2024 focuses on these three aspects of the cloud: cloud engineering, cloud solution architect, and cloud security. If you have taken any course in AWS Cloud before, you will know that they are all interwoven. When you are studying for cloud solution architect, you do a lot of security in it, you do a lot of engineering in it. So we are focusing this coming section for cloud engineering. So meaning that at the end of the course, you will be able to go out there and look for a cloud engineering job. You will be able to go out there and look for a cloud solution architect or cloud securities. Our participants will gain real-world hands-on experience, because it's what happens in the company that we use for practical. And we leverage cloud services and tools. So this training has been designed to aim at those looking to elevate their cloud skills and understanding, particularly in the area of AWS cloud solutions and cloud cybersecurity. So how is this our January 2024 cloud solution architect and cloud cybersecurity training deployed? It's going to be live online, which is online training and some self-study. For the self-study, you can go to our website, which is training.thecornelis.com, and you will see those self-study there. And when the times come, we are going to be introducing those courses that we want our students to study personally, which are also our previous batch we are not going to cover in the coming section. So it's going to be a complete hands-on training with relevant information, and it's going to be for four-month program. And the 4-month program is going to be divided 3 times a week. We're going to have classes 3 times a week, on Wednesday, on Saturday, and on Sunday. For the duration, which is the time on the days, we are going to cover that in the next section. So for the mandatory capstone project, we're going to have a mandatory capstone project after every major topic. Every major topic that we covered, the topic are divided into modules. Every major topic, we are going to have a capstone project for every major topic. And all these projects are continuation of the previous one. So meaning that when we finish module 1, we're going to have a project. Then when you go to module 2, the project on module 2 will be the continuation of module 1. So you can now see how all these services works together. So we also encourage video cam, but it's not compulsory. If you don't want to be on cam, you are also welcome. But we always welcome people to be on video cam so that we can know our student and our student can also know us. And finally, we expect our students to study every day. To be honest with you, it's like a 1-year job. It's like a 1-year course, but which wants to be covered within 4 months. So apart from coming to the class, doing all the assignment, you still need to study every day. That is how you can be more, you can participate more in the class and ask questions and develop rapidly. So about the class duration, as I said earlier, that I'm going to cover it in another section. So for the class duration, it's going to be the Wednesday class will be from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time. The Saturday class will be from 9 a.m. to 12 noon Central. And the Sunday class will be from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central. So for the curriculum, let me present another slide for the curriculum. So this is the curriculum here. We're going to start with cloud practitioners. I'm going to cover all of this topic under the cloud practitioner. Then after that, after the cloud practitioner, our students will actually go and write the certification. And once they pass the certification, then they move to the second section, which is the AWS Solution Architect. So for the AWS Solution Architect, we're going to start with the module 0, which is more like an introduction to server, introduction to server room, introduction to data center, introduction to cloud compute. Then after that, we're going to go to the architecting foundations, which this is where we're going to explore services in the AWS. We're going to look at AWS infrastructure, like AWS region, AWS availability zone, AWS local zones. After that, we're going to understand the importance of AWS well-architected framework, which is the framework that AWS provides that they require all their clients to follow in order to ensure that they have a very well-architected cloud environment. And that is a very, very good framework. I've used it several times and I'll continue to use it. Then after that, we're going to look at the how to interact with AWS via AWS console and AWS command line. Then we're going to look at the AWS account management and securities. How do you manage accounts in AWS? Under this, we're going to be talking about principles and identity on AWS. How do you create users on AWS? How do you create roles? How do you create groups? So these are all what we're going to be looking at in the second module. I'm going to be talking about using AWS security policies to, with the principle of least privilege, to limit access of people to resources in the cloud. Then on module 3, we're going to be talking about the basic networking on AWS. And for this, we're going to first look at the OSI, Moro, and IP addressing. Then after that, we're going to look at the VPC traffic security in AWS. Then we're going to start our first project. And once we are through with the basic networking, which is majorly introducing VPC, then we configure our first, with our first custom network infrastructure, which is our first VPC. We're going to deploy our first VPC. Then after that, we're going to compute on cloud. Under this, we're going to look at the EC2 instances. We're going to look at storage for the EC2 instances. We're going to look at the EC2 pricing services, then followed by Lambda. And on this, we continue the project that we start in the first in the third module. And this module, this project, we're going to architect 3 tiers architecture for an e-commerce application on AWS. So we are going to deploy a 3-tier architecture, 3-tier infrastructure resources in the network that we created earlier. So this is going to be the continuation of the first one. And on the next module, which is module 5, we're going to be talking about storage in the cloud, which is where we are going to be looking at Amazon S3 shared file system, which is an Amazon EFS. We're going to be looking at how to migrate data using my data tools. How do you migrate data from on-prem to the cloud using AWS data tools such as data sync and the likes. And we are going to integrate that with our first and second project. So that is going to be our third project, is going to be a continuation of the other projects. And after that, we're going to look at database in the cloud. Then this database, we're going to convert the 3 tiers architecture that we created earlier here. We're going to convert the database aspect of it to a managed database. Then we're going to look at module 7, which is introduction to automation. Here, we're going to be learning about CloudFormation and introduction to Terraform, then introduction to Python Boto 3. This is an introduction to Python Boto 3. There is going to be a special section for Python. Then we're going to look at containers. Then after that, we look at the advanced networking. The first networking we look at is going to be basic networking. Then after we get used to the environment, then we now start talking about the advanced networking. And the first networking topic we're going to be talking about is the VPC endpoints, followed by VPC peering, hybrid networking, and AWS Transit Gateway. Then we look at serverless compute in the cloud. If you don't want to actually have a server, can you still use cloud? Absolutely, yes. There are some services on the cloud that if you don't want to manage server, then you can use a serverless architecture to manage your resources. An example of serverless architecture we have is API Gateway, we have Amazon SQS, you have Amazon SNS and Kinesis. And we're going to look at a project on that as well. Then module 11, we'll be going to be talking about edge services. Edge services as those services that helps you move your that helps you move your resources closer to your customers. So example of that is Route 53. We're going to be looking at Route 53. We're going to be looking at Amazon CloudFront, the DDoS protection, and Amazon Outpost. And then module 13 would be on backup and recovery. How do you back up your resources? You're going to have a disaster recovery plan. You're going to have a backup strategy and recovery strategy as well. Then we're going to look at a project under that, which is implementing robust disaster recovery strategy with AWS backup. So what that is the module we have on the, that's what we have on the solution architect. And after that, we're going to move to the cloud cybersecurity and security engineering section. And on the security engineering section, after the module 0, which is the setting up the environment and our meeting one another, knowing about the learning objective and the logistics, we're going to go to the module 1, which is about security overview. And this is security fundamental. Here we're going to be learning things like the CI, the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability, which is the security goals. We're going to learn about security in the cloud, AWS shared responsibility module. We're going to learn about security in the cloud categorization, then the other security frameworks. And also here, we're still going to come back and discuss about the security pillar of the AWS well-architected framework. The AWS well-architected framework has 6 pillars. So one of them is the security pillars, what you need to do in order to have a secure environment. So we're going to be looking at that security pillars in detail. Then after that, the module 2, we're going to be talking about access and authorization on AWS. The first thing that you want to do in your AWS account is to manage access. If you can manage access securely, you can cut out compromise in your environment up to like half. So how do you manage access? So from here, we're going to first discuss on how to interact with AWS, which is via the console, via the API, or via the CLI. Then after that, we'll talk about the identity and access foundation. How do you secure the root accounts, which is the root user account, which is the email that you use to create your AWS accounts. That is what they refer to as the root user. So how do you secure that? Then after that, we're going to be looking at implementing multi-factor authentications in the cloud. You want to understand how to manage policies and use policies to grant permissions, then use permission boundary to limit what permission, to use permission boundary to limit what an IAM policy can grant in terms of permissions. Then after that, we're going to be looking at others area under IAM, such as the how do you use AWS roles in one account, how do you use it to access another account, which is cross-account access. Then how do you use or how do you analyze policy to ensure that it actually have a principle of least privilege, meaning that you are not granting multiple or more than what a person needs to perform their duty. Then how do you delegate and constrain permissions? How do you dictate anomalies in IAM via the cloud tree? That if you look at the cloud tree, how do you look at the cloud tree and dictate something that is not right? So on our module 3, we're going to be looking at how do you manage accounts. Module 2 here is going to be focusing on a single AWS account, but most companies have more than one AWS account. They have 2, 3, 4, some even have up to 100. So when a company has more than one AWS account, then that is what you want to learn in module 3, how to manage multiple AWS accounts. And under this, we are going to see How do you manage multiple AWS accounts individually? That means you manage them one by one. For instance, a company that has two AWS accounts, you can manage one account separately and manage the second account separately. But this method of managing accounts is not scalable. So you want to manage your multiple accounts with AWS organization, which combines all the accounts together, or which puts all the accounts under a single umbrella. And guess what? You can manage from one account, you can manage every other account. So if you are managing your accounts with AWS organization without using any form of automation, that means it's good, but you are going to be doing something manually, which is not, you're going to do it manually and you are going to do it in not a consistent manner. So there is a better way of managing all your accounts under an organization, which is where landing zone comes in. So landing zone is just like a template where you are going to be, what you are going to be following or what you should do if you want to manage your accounts consistently and in a secure manner, in a best practice way under organization. So the landing zone tool is more like a manual thing, because though it's a template which you must follow, but you have to do it yourself. So if you don't want to do it yourself, you want to use an automation, that is where Control Tower comes in. So with Control Tower, it's an automation where you just key in some parameters and it will automatically create everything for you that must be in a well secured, well architected multi environment or multi AWS accounts under organization. So these are what we're going to be covering in module 3, and also under module 3 we're going to be covering AWS Cognito, where we manage access to your applications. The first up here, the first four is managing, the first three is managing access to an account or managing multiple accounts. Then the Cognito is how do you manage secure access to your applications. Then after that, we're going to be looking at how to manage identity. You know, when you now start managing multiple AWS accounts, then that means you're going to have more users. So how do you create these users? Do you want to create username and password for every users in each of the accounts? Then that is going to be catastrophe, because that means you're going to be, for instance, a company that is having 100 accounts, that means you're going to be creating 100 username and password for one person that need access to all the accounts. That is not scalable. So that's why we're going to be introducing how to manage access or how to manage identity in AWS using AWS Identity Center. And with this, you can also integrate this with AWS Active Directory, which use SAML. Or you can also do the same thing using Okta. So with this, you can use a single sign-on, which means that you only need one username and password to sign in. And once you sign in into one central account, then you can access every other account without needing a username and password. Then after that, we're going to be talking about managing key and secrets on AWS. When you are managing your resources on AWS, you have a lot of keys, you have a lot of secrets, like you have a lot of username and password for your application, for your database. How do you manage this? Do you embed your application's key or your credential? Maybe, for example, you have a database. Do you put the username and password of the database in your application so that the application can talk to the database? Absolutely no. There are multiple ways to manage these keys securely, and these are what we are going to be discussing in module 4. And also, still under module 4, we're going to be talking about how to ensure that all the data that you have are encrypted. All the data you have are encrypted, both in transit and both on transit and also on rest. Then after that, we're going to be talking about data security. So for the data security, you're going to be looking at different strategy to protect your data. Then we're going to be looking at data protection in AWS and Amazon S3 and Amazon S3 security best practices. You're going to be looking at data encryption for AWS, Amazon S3, and access control. How do you secure the data that you have or that you store in S3? You want to make sure you encrypt it. Encrypting it is not enough. You also want to manage access. If you don't manage access, if you prevent people from the internet, which we refer to as the public people from your S3 bucket, what about the insider? What about the people that you trust, your employee, the company's employee? You also want to manage their assets so that they don't have access to what they shouldn't have access to. Then after that, on module 6, we're going to be talking about infrastructure and edge protection. So infrastructure and edge protection, here we're going to be looking at the networking that we created in Solution Architect. What are the security that we need on this network? What are the security that we need on all the content that we move closer to the customers, which are the something like the cloud fronts that your customer can access? How can you protect it? How can you protect the endpoints that your customer are using to access your resources? Then on module 7, we're going to be talking about the monitoring and collecting of logs. You have a very secure architectural diagram. After you have a very secure architectural diagram, what next? You need to monitor it and make sure that nothing slipped out of your control. So for you to be able to monitor your security that you put in place and make sure that it's actually uh, highly secure and is preventing as you want it to prevent, then you need to monitor it. Once you monitor it, monitoring it is not enough. You need to be able to analyze the log and be able to detect if there is abnormal behaviors. So after that, we're going to be talking about responding to threats. Once you monitor the logs, if you discover there is abnormal behavior, or there's actually an abnormal behavior or a security event, how do you respond to it? Those are what we're going to be talking in module 8. And in module 9, we are going to be wrapping up, like doing a recovery or a revision of everything that we've discussed. Other services or other topic that we are not going to be that we are going to cover, but not among the 4 months, which means we are going to arrange a separate classes for them, are the bash scripting, Terraform, the Python classes. So these three, we're going to cover them, and also include here is the Linux OS, Linux operating system. This, we already have a class for them already. We have videos for them on both on this current YouTube, or we also have video for them on our website, which they are all free. Our student can go there and watch those videos. But if they still want a live class, then we're still going to arrange a live class for that, but which is not going to be part of the 4 months. It's going to be a separate class, maybe a 2 weeks Terraform class, which is not going to be the normal time that we do our weekly classes. So this is what we're going to cover in this coming module. Back to the presentation. So apart from the curriculums that we're going to cover, we also have other things, other bonuses, especially the resume prep and review. We're going to help you to prepare your resume and review it. We're going to also help you with your LinkedIn preparation, interview preparation. Then you also have access to group discussion, group revision, and group studies. Then networking with other professionals are the main selling points, because you have access to other people that are already working, or those people that are also doing exactly what you are doing, and which means you can connect with them, you can share your thoughts with them, and both of you can grow together. So you can also join our community of AWS professionals. So these are the bonus for the trainings, the what we need to cover and the bonus. So the price for the training is 2,000 US dollar, and if you are paying once, you can pay 1,800. If you are paying twice, you pay 950 for two installmental payment. But if you want to pay 4 times, that means you have access to pay $500 bi-weekly. That means every 2 weeks you pay 500. If you want to register for the training, you can register on the training.thecornelis.com/join, and and also if you remove the join, that means you can also get into our website. So any question for me? This is the question and answer section before we move into the to testimony. If you have a question for me, you can put it in the chat, in the comment box. Any question for me? All right. So if there is no question for me, currently I was talking to those people that the previous student. Yeah, somebody is asking that, are we going to be grouped when it comes to projects? Well, yeah, we're going to group people, but some people do prefer to have their projects independently. Then that is also welcome. But if you want to work in a group, yeah, we group people as well. All right. If the those people that I invited for the testimony, some of them were because we're supposed to do this yesterday, something happened, then we have to postpone it to today. So some of them do not have chance to join us today, while the other person or they are in transit. So what I'm going to do, I will post the testimony section after this class. I will post the testimony section on our YouTube on our YouTube channel. So you can go to the YouTube channel. We're also going to link it with this video together with the testimony channel. We're going to link both of them together, and you can watch it on our YouTube channel. What are the certificates do you expect us to write before the end of the training? Well, before the end of the training, the first certificate that I want people to write is the Cloud Practitioner Certificate. That is not actually compulsory, but honestly, I can tell you that when you have that basic cloud practitioner certificate, maybe like 2 weeks immediately after the once you start the class, 2 weeks into the class, and you have that certificate, it's going to boost your morale. Then after that, when you complete the solution architect, the our courses for the solution architect, we covered about 70 to 80% of the exam. The remaining 20%, you have to study past questions to see how AWS asks questions and how you are able to quickly eliminate all those irrelevant options and to go directly to the answer that fits in the questions. Because the way AWS asks their questions is that they may give you all the answers to be correct, all the answers might be correct, then they want the best options for that scenarios. So those are other things that I mean that you also need to study previous materials to know how AWS asks their questions. But I can guarantee you that the course is going to cover like up to 70 to 80% of the exams topic. Then the remaining 20% is going to be your self-study. And after the solution architect, the security um the security, the certified security specialty is also encouraging. But before you write the security specialties, I always advise people to have security plus first, because with that security plus, you are as good as any that security, especially the security plus 601 and the new one they just have 701. It covers major every security certifications. So I always advise people to have that certification first before any other thing. Then you also, after that, then you can go for the AWS security specialties. But all the certification, they are good to have, but they won't get you the job. It's what you know, the hands-on, the real practical work that you know that will get you the job. And that is what we are offering our students. All right. If there is no other questions, as I said earlier, we're going to post the testimony section in the YouTube, so you guys can watch that later. Then, if there's no other question for me, I want to say thank you for everybody. Thank you for attending. And if you are interested in learning more about the program or you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. And I hope to see everyone in the training. And also, please help us to tell your friends, your colleagues about our YouTube channels and about the training as well. So if you have not subscribed before, kindly subscribe. And if you have not registered and you are interested in the training, please reach out to us either on this number, or you can send us message or email on hello@thecornelis.com, or you can also mail us at thecornelisinc@gmail.com. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. All right. Bye, guys.